why our rates of chronic disease are so high, especially when you look at like the rates of prediabetes and diabetes with kids. That is just tragic.
The bigger bodies out there, they don't want you to know. And what you develop with HeadsUp is exactly that.
We can do this stuff easy and fast and cheap and like a tenth of the price that would take to do a clinical trial.
Meet Dave Korsunsky, founder and CEO of HeadsUp, the platform turning your health data into clear, actionable insights. After leading tech teams at VMware and Cloud Physics,
he's now helping people make sense of billions of data points to take control of their health and live better every day.
One of our customers here in Fort Lauderdale, she figured out she was pregnant from the ordering. So you start to see how these sensors can tell us things that we have not even been able to feel yet.
That's an interesting notification.
We now can get feedback from our body every single day. And we as individuals now actually have better data on our health than the doctor.
If I'm a patient and I'm utilizing a platform like yours and I'm keeping track of all of my health data, I go to my clinician and they can't see what I see, that's a problem.
So one of the things that we do in our system is set up the filters and pull out the clinically relevant signals from the sea of noise and then bubble those up so that an appropriate action can be taken.
When it comes to health data, what are some misconceptions that people have out there?
Oh, that's a really good question.
Welcome to another episode of a Healthy Point of View podcast. I'm your host, Sam Tejada. And as usual, we're bringing experts from all over the world in health, wellness, beauty, and mindset. Today, we have a guest. You guys know how much I love technology when it comes to health and wellness. We are in the future, and who knows what there is to come in the future, right? So with everything changing with AI and all of this technology and all of this data, who is actually leading the way with all of this data? I know who. It's the guy who's sitting here in the room. Today we have Dave Korsunsky. Did I say that right, Dave?
You nailed it, Sam.
Awesome, man.
Yeah.
I always butcher names.
Yeah.
Dude, pleasure to have you here on the podcast. You know, we've been able to connect, go
Yeah.
out to dinners, hang out at the conferences.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing what you're doing, man.
Yeah.
And you're moving mountains when
Yeah.
it comes to the health and wellness.
Yep.
And you come from a background of tech,
Yep.
you know, where now you're taking that expertise in tech
Yep.
and bringing it into the wellness side, which I've had the opportunity to meet a few different guys in the tech world that are
Yep.
doing stuff in the wellness space. And by far, man, I'm telling you, you're doing something that I'm truly passionate about. I told you I'm in the process of writing a book
Yep.
called Your Wellness Data, which you are definitely having a chapter in that book
Awesome.
because what you're doing is something that is really going to allow people to take control of their health. So I want to talk about it, man, about how did you even get here?
Well, as you mentioned, I was previously working in the high tech world in Silicon Valley. And going back like 2010, 2011, 2012, none of this stuff was on anybody's radar. This industry, it was nascent.
Right.
But there were some small groups of people in the Bay Area that were starting to capture physiological data on their own bodies and starting to use that to figure out how to optimize the health of the system.
Okay.
Some of the early guys at that time were Tim Ferriss, Dave Asprey, Rob Wolf, Ben Greenfield. There weren't a lot of them, but there were enough that there was an early start of a movement of people who were looking at ways they could optimize performance of the human body as a system.
Right.
And in my day job, I was doing the exact same thing, but instead of a human body, it was a computer system. So my job was to go into some of the largest corporations in the world. They have hundreds, thousands, in some cases, tens of thousands of servers in a data center running entire corporations. And it was my job to go in there and analyze the performance of all of these computer systems, figure out which ones were running suboptimal, why, and then be able to go to these companies and show them how to optimize the health of all those systems. So I was working for a company that was collecting over 80 billion data points per day
Oh, wow.
and bringing all of that information into the Amazon AWS. And I could then go back into these companies And because I had access to the right data, I could show them problems that have been there for years that they didn't even know they had. So I got really, really good at working with very large data sets and optimizing the health of a computer system. A computer system, a server in a data center, is generating hundreds of thousands of data points per day. All of these performance statistics that tell you the utilization on the microprocessor, the latency on the disks. There's thousands of performance statistics per system, and then there's thousands of systems. So you can start to see how very quickly you end up with billions of data points per day.
Right.
So I got really, really good at that. And I also started getting really, really into understanding my own body and my own health. And as you know, Sam, the human body now is generating hundreds of thousands of data points per
Oh,
day.
yeah.
I've got a continuous glucose monitor on my arm, sampling every 5 minutes. Okay. I've got an Apple Watch on my wrist, sampling hundreds of metrics, heart rate every 5 minutes, physical activity, respiratory rate. I wear an Aura ring when I go to sleep. It's measuring every single heartbeat. It's measuring the milliseconds between every heartbeat.
Wow.
So just me alone, I'm no different than the server.
Right.
I'm generating these data points. And we need systems that make it easier for the individual to use that information to make smarter decisions. So all I did, Sam, was say, hey, I know how to do this on a computer system, but there's no way for me to do this as a person who wants to be in charge of my own health. There was like some dog shit patient portal from my doctor that was mostly useless. I had a bunch of DEXA scans sitting in PDF in Dropbox.
Right.
I had a bunch of stuff that I called all my old doctors and asked for the records. They sent me stacks of paper. Like, that is the most important data for me and the quality of my life while I'm above the ground, and it's just a fragmented mess.
Right.
So then it's like, how do you solve that? And as an entrepreneur, I'm glad I was naive, because if I knew what I was getting into when I said I want to go do this, I probably would not have taken it on, because it just turns out to be a massively complex engineering problem. But to answer your question more directly, it was taking what I was able to do with computer systems and then just applying that same logic to the human body.
That's amazing, man. It's like you allowed them to melt together,
Yeah.
right? And you really start thinking is little by little throughout the years, I'd say within the last decade, you started seeing a lot of these different tools for health data, like the Apple Watch,
Yep.
Oura Ring, the continuous glucose
Sure.
monitor.
Yep.
All of these things kind of like pop up. But one of the things that you guys are doing, it's not just having these individual data points, but you're merging them together onto
Correct.
one dashboard.
Yep.
So let me ask you something. So one thing that I've noticed very recently, and you mentioned some of the names, but there's a lot of these big biohackers
Yep.
that come from the tech world.
Yeah.
Dave
100%.
Asprey,
Yep.
Brian Johnson,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
You said Ben Greenfield comes from the
No,
tech.
he was one of the early people in that industry, but I've seen a similar pattern
Right,
where you have people who have a very strong engineering mindset
right,
come into healthcare, take that engineering problem solving framework that they've developed from solving very complicated engineering problems in hardware and software. Turns out you come into healthcare and you bring that fresh perspective and that engineering mindset, and you can come in and do some really interesting things.
yeah. And I want to hear your perspective on it. Obviously being a tech guy yourself, where when you look at like biochemistry, or you look at like the metabolic pathways and how this works, and while you're doing this, is it very similar to the tech world when it comes to that?
I think it depends just how deep you go into hardware.
Right.
For me, when I think about those complex chemical pathways, it gets very, very intricate. It's almost like circuit boards
Yeah.
and motherboards. So if you're a guy designing circuits, microprocessors, memory chips, that to me seems like the closest analogy to these very complicated chemical pathways. And just speaking for me personally, I never went down to that level of hardware engineering. I stayed one level above. But I would say that the comparison between circuit boards, motherboards, microprocessors, you could make a comparison to these complex chemical pathways that happen in the body and how
Right.
information basically
Yeah.
flows through these systems or circuits.
Yeah, and it gives you the ability to actually have a bird's eye view of what's happening with your health, not
Mhm.
just this one specific snapshot once or twice a year when you go to your general practitioners,
Yeah.
right? And it can kind of give you, I remember our chief medical officer, who's my partner, Dr. Christopher Davis, when before he had COVID, he knew something was up with his body from his aura ring,
Absolutely.
you know, and he knew at that point in time, he says, you know what, I think I probably got exposed and I have COVID. And he started doing certain things, certain remedies to try to shorten the time of having COVID,
Mhm.
so certain peptides and everything else. So I feel like at this point, with something like what you have developed, gives people more of the ability to actually have a closer look to their health on a continuous basis, right?
Well, absolutely. And by the way, there's other signals. I was at one of our customers here in Fort Lauderdale the other day and spoke to a woman who worked there as a clinician, and she figured out she was pregnant from the Oura ring
Oh, really? Wow.
because you get that same temperature indicator, and
Right.
there's actually cycle data coming through the Oura ring. So not only are you getting notifications about viral illness, but like the fact that she was pregnant. So you start to see how these sensors can tell us things that we have not even been able to feel yet.
Right. That's an interesting notification. I don't know
Women's
if I wanna
health
be
and
next to it.
fertility is like a whole massive use case for
Right,
sensors because there's fluctuations in temperature data
right.
that can be picked up through these sensors. Now, when I got into this, none of these sensors existed. They hadn't even been invented yet.
How long ago did you get into it?
I started getting into this whole world of health optimization like 2010, 11, 12. So
Oh,
like
wow.
we had old school glucometers.
Right.
We had the ketone strips that you pee on.
Yeah,
We had DEXA scans, we had blood tests. There really were none of the sensors had not even been invented yet.
right,
So to see where the sensor technology is now is insane.
right.
The stuff we can measure every single day. And you mentioned the fact that we now can get feedback from our body every single day. And we as individuals now actually have better data on our health than the doctor
That's true.
because they have your snapshot whenever you go in and then you leave and you're a black box at that point. Now we as individuals can make a change on a Monday and get the feedback on a Tuesday. So we as individuals now can self calibrate so precisely. And it's so powerful to make these changes in real time that it's just incredibly exciting. It's empowering. It's transformational for people just to be able to course correct very quickly, engage in an experiment to improve your health, and you'll know within a day or two if it's benefiting you or not. Then you go get the blood tests every 6 or 12 months. That's more like the episodic data. But between the blood tests, you have all this other data every single day to tell you how well you're doing and course correct.
Right.
So it just gives you a continuous data feed to continue to optimize your health. And I'm sure once you make a change and you see it work, it's exciting.
It is.
You're like, okay, now what's next?
Yeah.
What's the next optimization
It's
I
part of
can
that
do?
reward system, right? It's
Totally.
like that data when you see it going in the right direction, and even if you don't see it going in the right direction, it still allows you to make a course correction,
Absolutely.
right? And then at that point, there goes the reward that you have, where it's just like, okay, you know what, I want to do better.
Yeah.
Especially for a guy like me or like yourself, where we just want to keep on excelling. Let's make it better. Let's make it better. Let's make it better.
Well, the other thing I like to do, Sam, is I like to make sure that with every calendar year that I get older, I'm looking back at all of my historical blood tests, and I want to be better than I was 20 years ago.
Right.
I want my testosterone levels to be better. I want my lean muscle mass numbers to be better. I want my VO2 max numbers to get better. There is no reason why, with all of the tools and education and information we have now, that you cannot continue to get better every single year. So I look back at like my VO2 max levels from 10 years ago. I'm like, oh man, that's where I was 10 years ago. I'm going to be better than that 10 years older.
Right.
Where was my lean muscle mass on my DEXA 10 years ago? I want to be better than that today. So for the competitive people out there, you can look back in your history and continuously get progressively physically stronger and better and more capable every year you get older.
Yeah. And the best part is having something where you have that quantifiable data
Yeah,
readily available on a
sure.
dashboard
That's the challenge.
allows you to actually, be successful with that data and be able to visualize it.
Yeah,
Now, you said something about for the competitive people.
yeah,
One of the things that came to mind is like athletes,
yeah,
professional athletes, or aspiring
sure.
athletes. How would something like this benefit someone like that?
Anytime you are an individual where your performance on a day-to-day basis means the difference between success or failure, or in some cases, millions of dollars. Think about a golfer who's on day 4 of the Masters, and they're in the hunt
Right.
with 4 other guys. And one guy is precisely monitoring all his physiological statistics. And he knows exactly where his heart rate variability, his resting heart rate, his sleep numbers have been for the entire week. And he's working with a trainer who knows how to absolutely optimize that individual for the final round. Okay. Versus the other athletes. Granted, they're all fit, they're all world class. When it gets down to that level, the difference is minute.
Right.
That's the difference between winning and losing. And that one individual has gone through a protocol the night before that allows his body to have the optimal recovery. And he wakes up in the morning and his numbers are at the optimal level. The
Wow.
chances of that individual going out and succeeding versus the other competitors is going to be significantly higher. And we work with clinics. One of the clinics we work with is Podium Sports Medicine, Dr. Kevin Sprouse. He works with Tour de France and PGA golfers.
Okay.
And he's monitoring every physiological parameter, knows their baselines, knows how to get them to baseline, and has got all the data. So when you have that, now that could be an athlete, that could be someone running a company, that could be a mom managing a family. So there's lots of implications there. But when you get to the professional level, um, having the data can be the difference between success and failure.
Yeah. I can definitely see that. Now, Dave, one of the things when you were talking about the clinic that
Yep,
manages a lot of these the athletes,
sure.
right? The difference between a medical provider that has access to this information
Hmm.
versus a medical provider who doesn't,
Hmm.
in my opinion, I think this is going to be a more successful medical provider on treating their patients,
Yep,
with these type of definitive treatments for
yep.
whatever's going on, right?
Agreed. I think, Sam, we're still in a era where a lot of conventionally trained medical doctors may or not may or may not be as familiar with a lot of the new sensor data.
Right.
So in the example I gave, he's a medical doctor, trained conventional medical doctor, but also knows all the cutting edge sensor technology and studies all the latest biohacking technology, vets it out, and then decides if it's ready to be rolled out to an athlete or not.
Okay.
So that individual has got the skill sets of traditional healthcare, and that means looking at a lot of conventional medicine blood work, but also knows how to go really, really deep into resting heart rate and HRV and the stuff that tells you day to day how well that person is recovering.
Yeah.
So I think the opportunity is one of the things we want to do is educate more clinicians on how to use what I call the real time data. I think there's still a long way to go there.
Yeah, I think And we have a lot of clinicians that listen to the podcast, over 4,000 doctors in our network.
Mhm.
And I want to be clear on this with the clinicians of how important it is, because if I'm a patient and I'm utilizing a platform like yours,
Sure.
right? And I'm keeping track of all of my health data
Mhm.
to the granular, the way that you can.
Mhm.
And I go to my clinician and they can't see what I see when it comes to my health.
Mhm.
That's a problem. Like
Yep.
I want a clinician who's going to be able to see not just what I see, but more than what I can see.
Yep.
Right. And that's why I'm going to the professional.
Yep.
So I think it's probably extremely important for clinicians to really consider start dabbling into the tech with their patients, so they can actually have more of this data and not let your own patients. Because I'll tell you, I remember when I used to actually work at the clinic, guess who would treat our patients before we did? Dr. Google.
Yep.
So, do you want Dr. Google treating your patients, or do you want to be the one who has access to all of their data and be able to really treat them based off what they have? Are you seeing a lot of clinicians now becoming more interested in this type of information?
Primarily when we step out of the insurance medicine world, obviously.
Right.
It also depends how the practice is structured. So there's obviously a lot more time and effort involved
Right.
to do this level of analysis.
It's more like
And
a concierge type of service.
yeah, so it's going to depend on how they offer their services. And so the ones that will go really really deep into like the real-time day-to-day lifestyle optimizations, it takes more time, it takes more expertise. You're probably going to expect to pay more for that.
Right.
So I think it just depends on the type of practice, the type of services they offer. It's also a lot of data even for these clinicians. You can imagine, Sam, you have 100 patients on your panel, and they've all got lots of sensors, and they're all beaming in all the data. It's non-trivial to figure out what do I even pay attention to. So one of the things that we do in our system is we filter the data and only bubble up the really, really important metrics. So, for example, we would set up the system to say, only ping me if one of my high performance athletes on the system has a temperature fluctuation of more than 1 degree. Or another very common one is only notify me if their heart rate variability has gone down for 3 days in a row. Maybe just the day-to-day variance is not so important, but if it's gone down for more than X, say 3 days in a row, and now they're say 15% below their baseline, that's when I want to get notified. So
Right.
part of the work we have to do with our system is set up the filters and pull out the clinically relevant signals from the sea of noise and then bubble those up so that an appropriate action can be taken.
Does that change depending the medical provider and what they request?
Yeah, they all have their own specific ways they want things set up.
Oh wow.
So one organization will come to us and say, for example, we need to get notified if this individual's, let's just take blood glucose, for example, has gone up by more than 15% from baseline over the last 5 days.
Okay.
And the next organization will say, well, we want to look at the last 10 days and we want an alert on 20%. So every group has their own parameters that they're looking at. It just depends on what type of practice they run.
Right.
Is it a weight loss clinic, the diabetes clinic, is it a longevity clinic? They're all wanting to look at different numbers. They all want to analyze and look for different signals in the data. So part of what our system does is go in and very prescriptively track the metrics they need and find the exact signals through the noise that they're looking for.
So that doesn't seem like an easy engineering job to do.
No, it was extremely technically complex because you've got 20 different devices that a person can wear. They're all
Right.
sending you data in different formats. They're all sending it to you in different timestamps.
Yeah.
They're in every time zone across the globe. And you have to basically run this one analysis at midnight in the user's local time zone for 20 devices all over the world and look for a very specific pattern in the data. So the ability to do that, like, it took me years
I can only
to
imagine.
figure that out. Like, to get to the
Yeah.
point where we could do that was just, like, years in the making. Even being able to get get the right engineering team together to be able to even have a crack at doing that kind of thing.
How
And so,
many engineers do you have?
man, right now there's probably 20
Oh, wow.
working on all aspects of the platform.
So how does that process work? Like when the data is actually going into your platform,
Sure.
is it like through a backend API that's integrating from the Aura Ring, the Apple Watch, and
Yeah.
it's just feeding it automatically, or is there like a push pull type of deal that's happening? How
Yeah.
does that work?
Yeah, great question, Sam. So let me just I'll break it down into like the classes of data that we have to swallow.
Yeah.
So the first is like what I call like the real-time sensors, glucose monitors, watches. Those we typically pull data from their API,
Okay.
and we're basically polling them for updates. And so all that data comes in automatically. We build the integration once. Like, let's just take Aura, for example. We build the integration once, the data is just flowing. We make updates, we enhance the integration when Aura comes out with new metrics. So there's like ongoing maintenance, but you have a class of sensors that you just do an integration and they're transmitting. Um, the other class of data is what I would call traditional blood work. Like, you go to the lab and they're going to take your full lab panel.
Right.
Um, A lot of that data is in PDF files, or it could be your DEXA scan, or your in-body, or, there's urine, stool, microbiome, saliva, hair. There's all these ways to capture these diagnostics. A lot of that data actually is trapped in PDF files.
Right.
You ever gone to the lab, you get a PDF file back. That data, what we do is our system can go into the PDF files and read all the numbers in the PDF file, extract those numbers and store them
Mm.
in the database, because you're trying to put a trend line together. You want to look at the DEXA scan lean muscle mass over 10 DEXA scans over 10 years, or you've got blood work in PDF from the last 20 years. So the second class is like getting data out of PDF files.
Okay.
So that's the second class of data. The third class of data is data from things like cryotherapy chambers and IVs and supplements and all the things that we're basically doing to our health. These are like the interventions or the biohacks. So let's say I do 60 sessions in a hyperbaric chamber. I want to record how many sessions I've done and how many hours. With HBot as an example, typically they're going to say, "Hey, you got to do 40 hours in the chamber as kind of like just the baseline." So how do you even know how many sessions you've done? So how do we get data off that equipment? So, we have ways to pull that information into the system.
Is that more like a manual process for that?
It's manual process for now. We're also working on some technology to make it easier to log those sessions by, for example, integrating with the software in the clinic where you book.
Okay.
And we're also working on ways just to put a Copilot in our mobile app, where you just tell it, log 3 minutes in the cryo chamber, and I had a skin temperature deviation of X. So we're trying to make it more and more frictionless to get that data in,
Yeah.
because there's really not good, easy ways to capture that information.
No, I like that. Like even with like the technician or the medical assistant or the
Yeah,
medical provider, they have to put certain things in the patient's charts anyway. So
correct.
if you can pull that, hey, this person got an IV, this person came and did red light for X amount of minutes or hours, that I can see where that data can come from as well.
Yeah. So we an example might be, Sam, that the system detects that a particular individual is getting run down, and we would detect that through a wearable that shows degraded sleep, elevated resting heart rate, um, HRV suppression, for example. Then they get a ping automatically from you guys that says, "Hey, time to come in for some self
Dude,
care."
this is like something from the future. No, not like where my mind's going right now is I'm thinking about like when I was younger and I would watch one of these movies where like you're in the future
Yeah,
and then all of a sudden it's like Mr. Bond,
yeah,
currently our system's showing that,
Degraded
you know,
recovery.
you need to go get your IV drip because your body's
100%.
performing at 80%
I
instead of
want
90.
that.
Yeah, yeah, that's
I'm
crazy.
on the struggle bus on the road for 10 days. If I got a ping that's like, "Hey, you need to come in for an IV and some self-care, and we have an appointment for you at 3 p.m." I'm there.
No, but Dave, the difference is I'm talking to the guy who's developing this, you know?
Yeah,
It's
we're doing
different,
this. We're
you know?
building this.
Yeah,
This is real. We do this today, every
this is
single day.
amazing.
Like, this is not in the future. This
Yeah,
is real.
it's
We set
happening.
these parameters up so that clinics can reach out and say, "Sam, your temp's been up for 3 days in a row. Everything okay?"
Yeah, this is
Like,
amazing.
that touch point from a
Yeah,
medical provider, it's awesome.
yeah, yeah. It's almost like you could always have your medical provider in your back pocket.
The way our clinicians explain it to us when they talk to their patients about it is they say it's helpful for them to know that somebody's paying a little bit more attention than they are.
Yeah. It's almost like medical providers can probably treat their patients better remotely with this type of technology versus actually having people come in once or twice a year into their office.
I think you got the best of both.
Yeah.
They come in once or twice a year to do the physical exams, the scans, the DEXA, the blood work, but then you have the signals coming in every day that just tell you when someone needs an outreach because they're maybe trending in the wrong direction. On the flip side, it could be pings that say, "This person is absolutely crushing it," and just call them and figure out what the heck they're doing because their numbers are off the page.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, we have this new model now where it's continuous proactive healthcare. That's the world that we wanna create.
Yeah. Yeah. What are I know you mentioned like DEXA,
Mhm.
InBody,
Yep,
blood work.
yep.
What are all the different devices for the listeners that are wondering, oh, you know what? I wear a Whoop or I wear, Aura Ring. Like, what are all the different devices that you guys have been able to integrate with?
So there's the wearables. You rattled off a few, right? Whoop, Apple Watch, Aura, Garmin, Withings. Those are gonna Fitbit. There's just lots of good ones out there. The sensors get better and better and better and better and more accurate with every successive generation of these sensors. And these companies, by the way, have tens of millions of users and trillions of data points to mine and make sure that like everything they report is awesome. And you can get a VO2 max on these devices now. That's pretty close.
Wow.
So that's the first category. Get something that's going to give you good biofeedback on the quality of your sleep, your movement levels, your heart rate variability. That's just a good quality wearable.
Right.
Lots of great ones out there. The second would be the continuous glucose monitors. Um, those will really just help you self calibrate your blood sugar. And I would say that's probably one of the biggest ones that we all need to self calibrate because you go eat something and you don't necessarily always feel your blood sugar going to 180
Right.
after you crushed a burger and fry and a beer. But when you see the spike on the app, because it's measuring every 5 minutes, you start to figure out which foods are triggers for you metabolically. And you start to make those course corrections. Extrapolate that over the next 10, 20, 30, 40 years of your life, and you're not spiking blood sugar 3 to 5 times a day. That's been a big one as well. So that's the second one. Third would be like a good quality body composition analysis at home. So just a scale you can step on periodically
Yeah.
that gives you some good numbers. I have a scale at home. It's like a Tanita scale I bought 10 years ago. It does weight and body fat. When I go get the DEXA scan every 6 months, I just check the body fat number. It's pretty close to the scale at home. So that gives me some good feedback. I'm always tinkering with body composition.
Yeah.
I just staying lean and strong is like an ever changing algorithm as you age. So that would be the third one is just some good body composition data. Um, then there's the blood work. Getting that stuff really helps you make sure you're dialed in on your hormones, on your metabolic health, on your lipids. Just checking that. Like, I have a hard time saying this, but I just lost a really good friend who was not paying attention to his health at all. And at 50 years old, he's no longer with us.
Oh
And
wow.
and that was a liver thing that's easily tested.
Right.
You know what I mean? So like just get that done once a year.
Yeah.
So there's the blood work. And then if you're working with a complex condition, a functional provider may want to start looking at things like microbiome. So that would be like fungal overgrowths, parasites in the microbiome.
Right.
They may start to look at things like heavy metals in the body, mercury, lead.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. But we live in such a toxic world,
Yep.
and rather right now there's a lot of talk, especially with the ultra processed foods
Yeah.
and a lot of the toxins in the environment
Hmm.
that people are really wondering, like, do I have a lot of these toxins in my body? Is there any kind of integration or monitoring for that you guys are connected with?
There's tests you can do with regular blood work.
Right.
There's also more advanced tests where you'll actually ingest an agent. It's like a liquid that actually provokes the heavy metals to
Right.
come out of your body, and you can capture them in urine. So I've done some of the more advanced tests for heavy metals. There may be other ways to test it, but if you have worked in environments where you're exposed to a lot of chemicals, that would absolutely be something to take a look at, especially if you're experiencing symptoms. One of the clinics we work with in Mill Valley, California, Jizen, they were working with an individual who was suffering from neurodegenerative symptoms, Alzheimer's
Mm.
related symptoms. And those were able to be treated and reversed because there was a heavy metal toxic load in the system.
Yeah, I can see that happening, especially with a lot of first responders,
Yeah.
right? You look at the firefighter paramedics getting exposed to chemicals.
Yeah.
I've had buddies that are, SWAT team members
Hmm.
that, are out training at the shooting range and they're breathing in a lot of lead.
Hmm.
And, they come into the clinic and go through the chelation process to
100%.
get rid of that.
Yep.
But, um, the interesting part is that some people are a bit aware that, these type of toxins are out there in their workplace,
Hmm.
but a lot of them are not,
Hmm.
and I feel that there has to be more of awareness. There has to be a little bit more control of your own personal health. We're very dependent on other people taking care of us,
Hmm.
right? And that's kind of like the system that we grew up in. And right now, Dave, there's a big movement, the Make America Healthy Again movement,
Yep.
which part of that is changing the course of medicine
Yep.
and holding people accountable.
Hmm.
I want to hear your perspective on what you think about the Make America Healthy Again movement.
Yep.
And, everybody knows what I think about it and how much I love it. But, um, having this conversation with you, I'm going to chime in after I hear your perspective on the Make America Healthy Again movement.
Well, admittedly, I have limited exposure to it. Well, you and I were both in Austin
Right.
at the biohacking conference, and I attended a dinner there and got to listen to some of the messages that were delivered through that movement. I think that we do need to take a very hard look at why our rates of chronic disease are so high, especially when you look at like the rates of prediabetes and diabetes with kids.
Right.
Like that is just tragic. That's really the only word that I can think of. And why
Right.
are they getting these symptoms, right? Why are they getting diabetes at 12 years old? And so what is it that we're doing or not doing or putting in our bodies? That's why I feel that, like, how do we empower people? For me, learning that the food I was putting in my body was sending my blood sugar off the freaking page. Nobody told me that.
Right.
Like, I had to figure that out for myself. I had to go test my blood sugar after all these foods, and the only reason I figured it out was because I started going down this biohacking rabbit hole myself.
But Dave,
And
like, well, part of that, one of the things that like RFK Jr. talks about all the time, and a lot of the people behind the Maha movement is that the bigger bodies out there, the people with the deep pockets,
yeah,
they don't want you to know.
yeah.
Does that ever put you in a certain position where you might be a bit afraid with what you're developing, where now people are gonna actually be able to know, you know?
That's the hill I'm ready to die on. You know what I mean?
I'll be there with you, man. We'll create a Melissa for that one.
Yeah,
So,
I think, what defenses do we have?
right.
Like, how's the average Joe gonna go take on the big food companies? The way I wanna do it is give them the tools to better understand their own bodies so they don't put that shit in their system in the first place.
Yeah.
That's what I can deliver to people now. And whatever happens at, like, policy level, like, I'm glad that that is happening there, and the right people are taking a stance to really take on some of these fundamental problems with the health of the people in this country. But what I can help you with today is I can help you figure out how to make smarter, healthier choices every single day. So if you have one of those conditions, let's reverse it. And if you don't have one, I never want you to get it. I can give
Absolutely.
you that with data today, right now.
Right. Yeah. No, I love that. And that's kind of where I was going to go when I was talking about the Make America Healthy Again movement. I'm totally for holding our policymakers accountable, holding the food companies accountable, holding our pharmaceutical companies accountable
Hmm.
as well. But at the end of the day, we truly can't be dependent on anyone else but ourselves, right? I don't need a big Make America Healthy Again movement for me to be healthy. I've been doing it for years
Well, we
before
need
this
you
happened.
healthy, Sam, because
Yeah.
you're part of the fight. Like
I am,
the
I am.
healthier we are, the stronger and the more resilient we are to go take on these big challenges in the world.
That's true. But where I'm going with it is, what people have to do is they have to be able to take control of their own health.
Uh-huh.
And what you have and what you've developed with Heads Up is exactly that. Is empowering people to be able to actually have access to their health data in a very quantifiable way where they
Yep.
can look at it, trend it, and actually not be so dependent on someone else, but taking control of their own health. And for me, when I start thinking about let's make America healthy again, I think this is probably more important than holding the policymakers accountable, right? Because once you have that data, guess what? It's going to be a hell of a lot easier to hold all of these other people accountable because now we got the data to actually show you that, all of this other crap out here is not working and this is the way that we need to go.
I could not agree more, Sam. I think let's take a couple specific examples on that point. I talked to many people who have significantly cut back their alcohol consumption once they started to see what it does to their sleep and their
Oh
HRV.
yeah.
So you don't have to be a medical professional to wake up in the morning and see those numbers in the trash after you went out and consumed excessive alcohol. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy an occasional glass of wine, I like a glass of scotch, but I was oblivious to what it was actually doing to my body until I saw the data. I'm sure you've heard conversations where once you see just exactly what it does to your recovery numbers and how it affects your performance the next day. So just by having people look at those numbers of seen people who have substantially cut back, in a lot of cases, completely eliminated alcohol.
Right.
Let's take another example, which is foods that have an extremely high metabolic load on the body. This is one of the things that is really important to the Maha movement. These ultra processed foods, it's like a nuclear bomb going off on
Yeah.
your blood sugar. And so if you can show that to someone, they get an alarm on their phone that says, "You just hit 180 on your blood sugar. What the hell did you just eat?" And prior to that notification, you had no idea that was happening to your body. You now are able to make that change yourself. So I agree with you. I think that's how we can arm people basically to
Yeah.
start making smarter decisions. Then it comes bottoms up. Then you just have people making smarter choices because they're educated.
Yeah. Yeah. They have the information they need,
Mhm.
right? So, we're talking about a lot of the current data that goes into the platform
Yeah.
that allows people to take control of their health. Is the platform utilizing any AI?
So, great question. I think that's obviously the future.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, where we can start to implement AI into our system is, well, there's lots of ways. One of the ways we're doing it today is even just this nightmare of getting data out of PDF files. Uh, that is a problem that we're using AI to solve because there's thousands of different PDF files out there and they all have different ways of reading that information. Even when you go into a traditional electronic health record system, a lot of your blood work is in there as a PDF, and it's actually an image inside a PDF. It's actually like a fax. So there's just all this like really low resolution, crappy PDF files out there. So we're starting to use AI to get that data out more effectively. Other ways we can start to use it are just to make it easier to query your data. Like, for example, just being able to have a real conversation to say, "Hey, pull up my sleep and recovery stats for the last 90 days and just graph it out for me and tell me how I'm doing." So having more of a conversational interaction with data,
Right.
I think, can be very helpful. Uh, Looking at numbers and looking at analytics is very natural for some people and very overwhelming for others. So, how can we start to use AI to demystify a lot of this information, to simplify it, to make it easier to query, make it easier to process?
Yeah.
Same for clinicians. Being able to log in and just, for example, have a natural language conversation to say, who are the 10 people that I need to pay attention to today? Or uh, pull up a list for me of everyone who has a hemoglobin A1C above 7. So just making it easier and more intuitive to have interactions with data, finding very complex problems in data, patterns that are very subtle and would be otherwise difficult or impossible to detect. Being able to look at someone's data and then query a system that can reference all of the scientific papers on a patient in your system with a specific condition. So you log into HeadsUp and you see an individual with certain genetic mutations and certain blood tests out of range, and you can query an entire knowledge base of research in seconds
Wow.
that can help you with decision making. So there's scientific papers published every single day all over the world, and a doctor can log into our system and look at a specific individual's data and then query that entire knowledge base in seconds and help them with decision making. So who the heck knows where this is all going to take us? But I think the potential is incredibly exciting.
Yeah, yeah, I could definitely see that. One of the things that just came up in mind is I know like when I look at our POS system
Hmm.
at the stores,
Hmm.
it'll tell me exactly what we've done revenue wise,
Sure.
right? But then it'll also give me projections for the rest of the month,
Yeah.
and it basically tells me
Predictive.
the predictive, right? It tells me, based off of the pattern in the last 15 days, for the next 15 days, if you continue this pattern, this is probably where you're going to be at.
Yep.
And sometimes I look at the number, it's like, "Oh, no, that's not where we're gonna be at. We're gonna do better." And I gotta go out there, motivate the staff, and
Sure.
do what a leader does
Yep.
best, right?
Yep.
So, is that something that I'm not sure if you guys currently have it or you see in the future that based off of the current data of the person, it can actually show them a prediction of like, "Hey, if you continue going this route, this is what's possibly gonna happen down the line. You might wanna start stepping it up a bit, working out, meditating, or whatever it is."
Yeah. I think what's most exciting there is the fact that we are now able to generate data continuously and passively. Passively meaning you don't have to do anything. You just wear the device.
Right.
And there's these signals coming in every single day, sometimes every minute. So that's another really good use case for machine learning, artificial intelligence, is to say, "Hey Sam, we've got enough data on you to know that you're trending in a specific direction, and this is where you're going to end up metabolically, for example, if you don't start working on movement and getting more physically active and reducing your glucose levels, for example." So that's another benefit of the sensor technology is we get more data points to make these predictions. The other really exciting thing about AI is the ability to capture more subjective data from an individual that can
Mm,
make the predictive analytics even better. So for example, making it easier just to get information on what you're eating. Just being able to snap a picture of a meal and have it analyze what's on the plate, or maybe even just voice logging and being able to get that data in the system, or maybe pinging you on a periodic basis. Sam, how you feeling? 1 to 5. Uh, the more data points we can get, the better the predictive analytics will get.
Yeah, you might not actually have to run any control studies anymore, man. You might be able to just do it off of the platform.
Well, especially if we have a lot of historical
Yeah.
baseline data on an individual. We actually do a lot of studies on Heads Up today. We have companies that come to us with a product or a service. So we're doing one right now for a very specific type of sleep supplement that's designed to improve sleep.
Mm,
And what they did was they said, "Can you get us 100 people on your system that have Aura Rings already and already have at least 90 days of baseline data on the ring? And we want to send our product to 100 people." And obviously they opt in. And then we want to know what was the improvement in their Aura numbers when they took our product compared to their baseline.
right.
So we can start to do a lot of really, really good product validation. That helps these companies prove to the market that it works. Think about that before you had rings. Well, you're gonna bring 100 people into a sleep lab and put all the electrodes on them to capture data on sleep. Like we can do this stuff easy and fast and cheap and like a tenth of the price that it would take to do a clinical trial.
Right, right. Now, Dave, one thing that you said earlier, and I want to put emphasis on this. You
Yeah.
said that they opt in,
Yeah.
right? Because there's always a few kind of crazy people out there that think that you know the government and this that are just going to go ahead and take all their data, and
Sure.
the thing that we heard about the 23andMe,
Yeah.
all that stuff.
Mhm.
So, and you and I have had these conversations, and you've reassured me and have showed me of how you guys protect people's privacy
Yeah.
on this platform. So
Mhm.
I just want you to kind of touch on that. So if there's anyone who's questioning it right now, they understand, how serious you guys do take it, because I know that, but I want them to hear it from you.
Yeah, so we are regulated, under the same laws that every healthcare company is regulated in the United States, the same laws that hospitals are regulated under, and we have to follow all of those same provisions. When we go and work with large organizations like, for example, some of the large health systems, the security requirements that we have to go through before they'll even do business with us
Right.
is millions of dollars of investment in proper security, in proper audit logs, in penetration testing on the system, all the things we have to do to make sure that we're working at the absolute highest level of security. If we are going to, for example, ask people to participate in a study, we obviously give them the opportunity to opt in. If people volunteer when they do our studies. Most of the user data on our system is actually from the clinics on the system. And so the clinics are the ones that are the only ones that have access to your data
Right.
on our system. So let's say a longevity clinic signs up and they put 1,000 people on the system. They're the only ones that have access to that data. Now we can give them all the tools on top of the data. So now that longevity clinic has access to all our data analytics tools for their patients, they can start to build their own reports on top of the data. So we're basically empowering these clinics and they can crunch the data on their members and their members only.
I like that. I like that. Dave, when it comes to health data, what are
Mhm.
some misconceptions that people have out there
Oh, that's a really good question. Um,
with like health tracking and all that stuff?
yeah, misconceptions. That's a really, really good question, Sam. I would say, one misconception is that everyone's body necessarily is going to, respond the same way. So let's take blood sugar as an example. Um, Two people can eat a banana. And when you eat the banana, one person's blood sugar goes up and one person's blood sugar goes down. So I think everyone should be mindful that we all respond differently health wise. That's dictated by our genetics, our culture, our lifestyle, how much muscle mass we have on the body. So you can't compare yourself to everyone else.
Right.
I'd say that's the first thing. Second thing would be that just because something worked for your friend doesn't mean it's going to work for you.
Right.
So again, let's just take I don't know, peptide, for example. You know what I mean? it worked for this person and helped them manage a specific symptom or condition, there's no guarantee that that will work for the next person. So that's a misconception. I'd say not really a misconception, but there's a lot of people who struggle to look at the numbers that are not what they want to see. So there's certain aversions to the data that the experiments that didn't go right. I would encourage people to lean in when their numbers are moving in the wrong direction. A tendency is to avoid that type of scenario or maybe to stop tracking because you got a result you didn't like. Those are actually where the greatest lessons
Right.
can be found is where you do something that doesn't work. Um, the third one is that you have to spend a lot of money to optimize your health. I also don't believe that to be the
Me either.
case.
Yeah.
Some of the simplest biohacks in the world are completely free.
Yeah.
Going and spending time outdoors under the sun,
Right.
uh, going for a run, spending time with people you love.
Or say no to things too.
Yeah,
Right.
those are simple and free.
Right.
You don't need a sensor to look at what's coming out of your body. Sounds a little silly to say on camera, but like, what color is your urine?
Yeah.
That's the simplest biofeedback to know if you're hydrating properly.
Right.
What does the stool look like that comes out? You know what I mean? That tells you if you're digesting your food properly. You don't need a $300 wearable
Right.
to tell you some of the most basic biofeedback. So I don't think it has to be complicated and I don't think it has to be expensive. It certainly can be. And I love nerding out on all the expensive high end stuff, but it can be really simple and it can be really affordable and it can be really effective without spending a
Yeah.
lot of money.
Dave, you couldn't have answered that question any better. And people hear me talk all the time about how when it comes to your health, it can't be cookie cutter,
Hmm.
right? And when you were talking about, the banana, one person can eat it, the other one, when you have access to your health data, this is what we call precision medicine,
Hmm.
right? Where it's personalized to the individual. We're bringing personalization to you based off of your wearables, based off of
Hmm.
your biomarkers going into this dashboard,
Hmm.
and you being able to see what works for you and what doesn't. So that was a great way of how you answered it, man. I really want people to actually understand that and hear it. Now, right now we live in this world that there's a lot of mental health issues.
Oof, yeah.
How are you? Is there any part of Heads Up that's integrating with any kind of technology or tools for mental health?
That's one that is near and dear to my heart because I have so much compassion for people that struggle with that kind of thing. And it's also oftentimes one of the more challenging ones to work on.
Right.
Because you're dealing with your own operating system.
Yeah.
So you got to go in there and fix the software. So and I think there's a lot of mental health that is driven by lifestyle and diet, like just the levels of depression I believe that are correlated with broken metabolism and sedentary behavior and not getting enough natural sunlight and exercise. So that one, we can certainly start to pick up signals of mental health challenges. Those typically will manifest in the biomarker known as heart rate variability.
Right.
And we just did a whole webinar on this topic with a doctor who is an expert in heart rate variability and actually trauma, emotional trauma, acute emotional stressors will show up in heart rate variability. Also, emotional stressors that may have happened to you many, many years ago. Sometimes even in those early formative years before you even have memories of it.
Right.
That shows up in the heart rate
Wow.
variability number. So we may see a heart rate variability number that is significantly depressed and way below baseline. And that would be an indicator for the medical team to say, okay, we've looked at all of the normal things that would be there. We need to start looking at the emotional or what I call the psycho spiritual side of things. So I think we're we're sadly in a time and space where a lot of mental health is a result of things within our society that are preventable and treatable. Um, it does show up in the data from time to time. I am encouraged by advancements in mental health applications in medicine. I'm encouraged by advancements in psychedelic therapy as a modality. So I think there's good things happening, but I think there's a lot of people suffering, and that's
Yeah.
a big
And
challenge.
there's a few things that you mentioned before, also like just going out, getting sunlight, things of that nature. That I can definitely see those things enhancing, reducing anxiety, reducing potential depression. Even a lot of nutrients that your body needs
Yeah,
for it to even
100%.
function.
Yeah, just
Now,
eating poor nutrient low foods.
right, right, which doesn't even allow your body to cope
Yeah.
with some of these things.
Mhm.
Now there are, just the other day, actually, I had them on the podcast. They specialize in neurofeedback and
Yep.
also brain mapping.
Mhm.
Are you guys integrated with that at all as of yet?
Not yet.
Okay,
Um, I think if we find a good partner where we can start to pull in a data set that we could then start to cross-reference with other data, that would be very exciting for us.
that'd be amazing.
I
Yeah,
think getting more into mental health as a company is an area that we have not necessarily been drawn into yet. But if there's an opportunity to have an impact there, that would obviously be very significant for us. But we haven't specifically gotten into a lot of that technology
right,
yet.
right. Cool, man. So, man, what is the future gonna bring here? Are you
Yeah.
guys gonna have your own wearable one day? Like,
No, we don't wanna be in that game, you know what I mean? We
is
know our lane, and hardware is a totally different beast.
Yeah, I can only imagine.
I think for us, we see an opportunity. There needs to be one platform in the world that is completely vendor agnostic, and we can just plug in anything. And there's also a place for platforms that work with very specific hardware. So we wanna be the Switzerland on the data. We need to pull in everything because every group we work with is running different diagnostics and measuring different things.
Yeah.
For us, we're excited about the ability to measure more things continuously and passively. They all give us more clues on the data. We're excited about um, access to diagnostics coming to individuals more affordably, more people being able to get access to a really, really good blood panel every year
Yeah.
at an affordable price that they can pay cash for example. So more access to preventative diagnostic screenings, more ways to capture data passively. So people just don't really have to think about it. They just get a ping when there's something to pay attention to. More intelligent software that can find more signals for you in the data that are going to make you more smarter, more deadly, more preventative. So just continuing to see more of those patterns, I think, is where we would like to see the industry go and society as a whole.
I love it. Love it. So, Dave, I'm going to ask you, well, not ask you, I'm going to mention some names of biohackers.
Sure.
And whatever comes to mind, one word, only
Sure.
one word,
Hmm.
you're going to go ahead and just say it when I
Yep.
say the biohacker's name.
Go. I may not
Okay.
recognize the name, but I'll do my best here, Sam.
Okay. Gary Brecka
Uh, is he with 10x?
is kind of in, I'm not sure, but yeah, that guy.
Yeah. So we just did a conference with him not too long ago. The name is escaping me. It was in Phoenix, Arizona. Drawing a blank on that one.
Dave Asprey.
Bulletproof.
I like that. that does come to mind. Joe Dispenza.
Mind body.
Peter Artia.
VO2 max.
Ben Greenfield.
Shredded.
Brian Johnson.
Dunedin pace. That algorithm that he's tracking that's got him down to like, I don't know, less than half a year of aging for every calendar year.
Yeah.
So Dunedin pace, the biological age test.
And last one, Sam Tejada.
My man.
There you go, man. Awesome, man. That was good. That was good. I love that. I've been doing that on the podcast recently. So it's interesting what people say sometimes.
Awesome.
So, um, Dave, if there is one person out there, as we wrap up here, if there's one person that really resonates with the message today, it being a clinician or just someone who wants to take control of their health, what is one thing that you can leave them off with?
The one message that I would leave,
Leave them with.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, Sam, what really matters on this planet is love. And I think if you can surround yourself with loving relationships and you can learn to love yourself, that actually supersedes everything. So everything I do is just a means to the end to allow people to experience that. Health is a means to be the best version of ourselves. And the ultimate goal of the human experience from all of the people that I study, that I learn from, that have achieved, leaders in metaphysical and leadership and spirituality. When you ask them, what's the point of all of it, right? What is the point of all of it? It's to be able to experience that, and
Right.
and what I'm providing is a means to that end. So I would say that's the ultimate goal for me personally, professionally. It's what I want to allow others to experience. And when your health is thriving, you can show up and you can love and you can be loved. I think that is really the main message I would want to leave people with.
Amazing, man. Amazing. Dave, if people want to find you, how can they find you?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is at my work email, Dave at headsuphealth.com. You can find me on Instagram, Dave Korsunsky. If you want to talk to me more about how to use data in your life, in your business, reach out to us, support at headsuphealth.com.
Amazing. Brother, it was a pleasure to have you here on the A
It's been
Healthy
an
Point
honor,
of View
Sam.
podcast, man.
Thank you.
It's this is a message that was really needed for everybody.
Thank you, brother.
Amazing. Guys, you heard Dave. He said love. You got to lead with love. You have to live with love. You hear this guy. He loves what he does. He's passionate about it. There's purpose behind what he has developed and continues to develop, right? You got to love yourself. How are you going to love yourself if you're not taking care of yourself, right? When you talk about your data, your health data, that's part of loving yourself. You guys hear me say this all the time. It says it in the Bible. Your body's the temple of God. You have to take care of it. God lives within you, right? When we're talking about loving yourself, this is part of it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you share this podcast, follow it, leave your comments, and everything else. You got all the links down below. We'll see you for the next one.